A lot of peptide serums look impressive on paper, but when you actually make them, they can turn sticky or watery, cloudy, or just feel like expensive actives dumped into a basic gel. That's the problem. With a peptide serum, the peptides are only part of the formula. The base matters just as much. If your hydration system is too tacky, or your thickener is wrong, your powders aren't hydrated or dissolved properly, the finished serum can feel cheap, even when the ingredients are not. So in this video, we are making an advanced multi-peptide serum that's clear, smooth, low-tack, and built for a dropper bottle. I'm going to walk you through what actually matters: the serum base, the peptide phase, the hyaluronic acid hydration, and how to handle Copper Tripeptide-1 without making a mess of the whole batch. Before we get into that though, this is being filmed on July 7th. Surgery is exactly 1 week from today. This video is going to be coming out on July 18th, which is only a few days after my surgery, and I'm going to be recovering for several weeks. I don't know if I'll be able to get another video done between now and next Tuesday when I have my surgery. As you can imagine, I have a ton of pre-surgery testing that needs to get done. So we shall see what I can get accomplished. But in the meantime, let's see what the problem is with peptide serums. A peptide serum can look simple because most of the formula is water, humectants, and a few impressive active ingredients. But that's exactly where people get into trouble. They think the expensive ingredients are the whole formula, so the base becomes an afterthought. And with this kind of serum, the base is not just filler. It controls how the serum feels, how it flows, how tacky it gets, how clear it stays, and whether those powders actually hydrate or dissolve properly. That's why a peptide serum can have great ingredients and still turn into something that you don't want to use. It can feel sticky, watery, stringy, cloudy, or just unfinished, not because the peptides are bad, but because the formula around them was not built carefully enough. The consequence is that you can waste some really expensive ingredients and still end up with a serum that feels cheap. And that's frustrating because peptide ingredients are not the place where you want to guess your way through the formula. If the hyaluronic acid is rushed, you can get little fish eyes or stringy clumps. If the thickener is not hydrated correctly, the serum can stay thin in some areas and gelled in others. If the Copper Tripeptide-1 is added dry into the batch, it may not dissolve evenly, and now you're trying to fix specks in a formula that already has delicate actives in it. And even when nothing visibly fails, the sensory can still be wrong. Too much tack, too much drag, too watery, too thick for the dropper. All of that matters. A serum is something people use on their face, so it needs to feel intentional, not like a science experiment that technically mixes together. So the goal with this formula is not to throw every peptide we own into one bottle. The goal is to build a serum that makes sense from the ground up. We're using a low-tack hydration base, a balanced hyaluronic acid system, ectoine for extra comfort, and a light gel structure that gives the serum body without turning it into a thick pump gel. Then the peptide phase comes in after the base is already built, so we're not asking delicate ingredients to survive a messy process. By the time this serum goes into the bottle, it should feel smooth, clear, and controlled, not watery, not sticky, and not overloaded just for the sake of an ingredient list. This is what peptide serum formulation is really about, not just choosing impressive actives, but building the right environment for them. This is where formula strategy really matters. Before we start making anything, we need to think about this as a system, not just a list of nice ingredients. We're building the water phase first so that the humectants and polymers, the hydration materials, all have a chance to behave properly before the peptide phase comes in. That way, by the time we add the more delicate ingredients, the base is already smooth, it's hydrated, and it's ready to support them. So while I'm setting up, take a quick look at the Patreon perks on the screen coming up next. That's where you can grab the full written tutorial and procedures for projects like this, plus the larger formula library if you want to keep building your skills and take your projects further. So now let's move over to the lab bench and start building this serum the right way. Okay, before we even start building the serum, I already set aside a portion of the distilled water to pre-hydrate both the HLAs, the hyaluronic acids, and I let them sit overnight. And then I took another portion of the water and set that aside as well, and that's going to be for dissolving the copper tripeptide-1. We can actually start dissolving that now, and we'll talk about it later. Here's the copper tripeptide-1. And we're just going to start dissolving that now in our distilled water. Beautiful color. All right, we're just going to set that off to the side and we'll get back to that later. The reason why we do that is that keeps both of those powders from being just dumped straight into the main batch, which is where a lot of texture problems can start. So now we have the remaining distilled water in our main beaker here. It's our main solvent for the formula. Everything in this first phase needs a clean, even water base so that the humectants, the osmolytes, and the powders can dissolve properly. I'm keeping this formula at room temperature. We are not making an emulsion and we're not trying to melt anything down. So there's no reason to heat the batch at all. That also keeps us in a better place for the peptide phase later on. So let's just get started with our water phase. Into that distilled water, I'm going to be adding some propanediol 1,3. This is a lightweight humectant and solvent support ingredient in this serum. It's also going to help improve the hydration feel. It supports slip, and it's going to help keep the finish from being too sticky. Then I'm going to be adding pentylene glycol, another lightweight humectant, but it also helps support the preservative system. It gives the water phase a smoother skin feel while adding a little extra preservation support into this high water formula. Pentylene glycol. Okay, after that pentylene glycol, we're going to be adding Advanced Moisture 30 Plus. This goes into the water phase with the humectants. It's a specialty hydration ingredient, and its job here is to increase that soft, hydrated serum feel without making the formula heavy or like creamy. Next, I'm going to be adding betaine. It is an osmolyte, so think of this as your comfort and hydration support ingredient. In this formula, it helps reduce the harsh, tight feel that some water-based serums can have, and it gives the skin a more comfortable after feel. It's very, very hot and humid here today. It's been very hot all week, but it's very humid here today in Northeast Pennsylvania where I live. So some of these ingredients may be a little bit sticky to my watch glass because some of these are hygroscopic, so they're going to attract some water. I literally have only had these ingredients on my lab bench for roughly, I don't know, 10 minutes while I was, preparing each one of those. But some of them might stick. Nature of the game. Okay, after our betaine comes our glycerin, and it is intentionally kept at a moderate level. It's a classic humectant, and it absolutely works, but too much of this can push a facial serum into that sticky, draggy finish, which is one reason why I personally don't like using store-bought serums. Glycerin here adds hydration support without taking over the skin feel. Grab a different spatula, a bigger one. All right, after that glycerin, we have some panthenol, also known as provitamin B5. This is a water-soluble conditioning and skin comfort ingredient in this serum. It helps round out the formula so that it feels less like a plain gel and more like a really nice finished skincare product. All right, the last ingredient going into this main water phase is ectoine. This is another osmolyte, and in this formula, it offers lightweight comfort and hydration It fits this serum really nicely because it gives us a more advanced skin feel profile without adding oils or fragrance or anything that would cloud the formula. So one of our advanced ingredients. At this point, I'm going to be mixing until everything in the main water phase is completely dissolved and uniform. You do not want visible particles sitting in the bottom of the beaker before moving on, because this formula is meant to finish clear and smooth. So I am going to put this underneath my overhead stir in just one moment. All right, let's go ahead and get this small beaker here with that reserved water portion and both of those hyaluronic acids. You want to handle both of the hyaluronic acids separately because they're very good at clumping if you rush it. The low molecular weight is used at the smaller percentage in this formula. Its role is to add a lightweight hydration support without making the whole serum overly stringy or overly focused on low molecular weight material. And then the high molecular weight gives more of that surface cushion, slip, and hydrated film feel. And that's why we made this one the larger part of the hyaluronic acid blend. The key is patience with this stuff. Don't just dump the HLA powders into one pile and then attack them with a stick blender. Sprinkle them over the reserved water, let them wet out, and give them the time that they need to hydrate. This can be done ahead of time, which is what I always do. And honestly, overnight hydration is usually cleaner and less frustrating. So we're going to go ahead and start adding this slowly to our mix. So we can see that this is nice and clear. There's no fish eyes, so everything is nice and smooth. Make sure that you add that slowly and mix it gently so that it blends evenly without whipping unnecessary air into the serum. So now that we've got that all done, we're going to start building the light gel structure with some Sepimax ZEN. This is the ingredient that gives the serum body, and it helps keep it from feeling like plain water. Its technical job in this formula is to create a light, electrolyte tolerant gel network. That actually matters because we're working with peptides, humectants, and charged materials, and we need a structure that can stay smooth without collapsing or turning stringy. So we're going to go ahead and sprinkle this slowly over the moving surface of the batch. That part is important. Don't just dump it into one spot. If you do, you can create little polymer clumps that take forever to hydrate. So we're just going to sprinkle this very slowly across the top. All right, we're just going to let this continue mixing with steady moderation to give this polymer the time that it needs. The batch should gradually become more uniform and develop a light serum body. We're not trying to make a thick gel, for pumps. This still needs to move through a dropper, so the structure should be smooth, controlled, and fluid. Once the gel phase is fully hydrated and uniform, I'm going to give it a short rest so that any trapped air can start working its way out before we add the peptide phase. So I'll bring you back then. All right, this has just been resting for actually a couple hours. I got busy doing other things, and so I just let this rest for a couple of hours. There's still some air bubbles in there, but nothing I can do about that. It'll take care of itself eventually. Let's move this back up. Turn that back on again. Now remember, we haven't added any heat to this batch, but it's still a good idea to check the temperature anyways. Just get in the habit of checking temperatures. We haven't added any heat. It's like 79 degrees, and that's about the temperature of the room right now, 79 degrees. Turn that up just a little bit more. All right, we're just going to keep on moving on with our remaining ingredients, and the first one up is going to be Matrixyl 3000. This is a pre-made peptide complex containing palmitoyl tripeptide-1 and palmitoyl tripeptide-7. It's in a water and glycol carrier. In the formula, it's going to give us a classic Cosmetic Peptide System for improving the look and the feel of mature or tired looking skin. Because Matrixyl 3000 is already a liquid blend, I'm going to add it under the mixing. There's no need to whip this into the batch. We want even distribution without beating air into the serum. So we're just going to add that right on in. By the way, this is a really, really lovely texture right now for a serum. Really lovely. Okay, next up, we're going to be adding some Argyle Line Amplified. This is the formula's acetohexapeptide-8 blend. Its role is to round out the peptide profile and support the appearance of smoother looking expression areas while still keeping the formula in cosmetic skincare territory. So again, this goes in gently. At this stage, the base is already built, so we're just looking to fold the peptide blends into the finished gel serum structure. Give that just a couple of minutes to work its way in there. In the meantime, I'm going to give that copper peptide another little stir. So let's just talk about that while I'm stirring. So this is your GHK-Cu Copper Tripeptide-1. It's concentrated powdered peptide ingredient. And so pre-dissolving it helps to prevent specks, uneven distribution, and those little blue particles that can make the batch look just really unfinished and unappealing, honestly. Once it's fully dissolved, then this copper peptide solution can go right into the serum. You may see the batch shift to a very pale blue or a blue-green tone, and that's expected with this ingredient. So we're going to go ahead and just start adding that now. Beautiful color, gorgeous color. So after we add that, we're just going to continue to mix nice and slow and thoroughly. The goal is a smooth, even color with no visible specks, no streaks, no undissolved powders, clumps all over the place. We want this to be beautiful, and so far, so good. It's looking great. So we're just going to let that go for a few more minutes, and then we're going to add our preservative. All right, now we're going to be adding the preservative for this formula. Since this is a high water serum, preservation is not optional. So I'm going to be adding some Euxyl PE9010. This is our preservative system that helps to protect the finished serum against bacteria, yeast, and mold during normal use. The ethylhexylglycerin portion of this preservative also supports the preservation system, and it helps improve the overall feel of the formula. Mix that in thoroughly, give it the time to disperse throughout the whole batch. With preservatives mostly mixed in isn't good enough. It needs to be evenly distributed from top to bottom. I'm going to go ahead and give my lactic acid. I have the 88% lactic acid. I'm literally putting a drop. Those of you that are in the Formulator Friend Advanced tier level on Patreon who will be getting the full formula to this, you'll see what the percentage is. It's literally a drop, but we're going to be getting that in there next. This is for pH adjustment. Very tiny little amount just to bring the finished serum into the correct pH range for the formula. So literally a drop. That's it. One drop. So we're looking for a target pH around 5.5 to 6, and that range keeps the formula skin friendly. It works with a preservative choice, and it avoids pushing those peptides into an unnecessarily acidic environment. So I'm going to let this go for a little bit longer, and then we're going to check the pH after it's had time to fully equalize. You don't want to check the pH the second that the acid, the lactic acid, touches the batch and then assume that you're done. You want to mix this well, let the batch settle, and then you want to measure that pH. And if it needs a small adjustment after that, make sure that you document whatever changes that you make, if there's any additions that need to be done. But for the written formula, we are starting with this fixed lactic acid amount so that the formula still totals exactly 100%. And then once our serum is fully mixed up, we're going to check the appearance of it, the texture, the flow. We want it to be clear to very slightly blue or blue-green, and this is a gorgeous blue right now. Depending on the copper peptide that you get and where you got it from, but it should not have grit, sediment, clumps. It shouldn't be cloudy or separated liquids in here. The texture should be thin to medium and definitely dropper friendly because it's putting in a dropper. Should have enough body that it feels like a real serum, but not so much thickness that it fights the pipette. You also want to check the skin feel afterwards. This should spread on smoothly, feel hydrated, and avoid that heavy, sticky finish that makes people not want to use water-based serums. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this right now, bring this down off of our mixer and take the pH real quick. And we are coming in between a 5 and a 6. So that's just perfect. But as we always do, this is going to be sitting overnight. I am going to come back in the morning. If for you guys, it's just going to be a couple of seconds. It's going to be tomorrow for me. I'm going to recheck that pH, make any adjustments that I need to. Then we can go ahead and package this up. All right, let's go ahead and cover this, and we're just going to leave it overnight. Okay, it is the next day, and here is the finished serum. Look at how beautiful. Isn't that gorgeous? The first thing I want to show you, let me go ahead and give a little spritz of some alcohol on my pipette. I really, really want to make sure that everything is sanitary. But the first thing that I want to show you guys is the flow of this. So watch as I pull this into the pipette. You see that? It has enough body that it doesn't look like just plain water, but it's still fluid enough to move through this pipette without fighting me. That's the texture target for this formula. It's not a thick gel. It's not a pump serum, but it's a smooth dropper serum. That's gorgeous. So let's go ahead and place a few drops on the back of my hand here. So here we go. You can see that it holds together for a second before it starts to move. When I shift my hand this way in a vertical position, it holds its shape before it starts to move across my skin. So that little bit of body is coming from that Sepimax ZEN and the hyaluronic acid system, but it's still light enough to spread easily. As I rub this in, I'm looking for slip, any drag or tack, any kind of stringiness whatsoever. And this one spreads really smoothly. Doesn't give me that ropey hyaluronic acid pull that can happen when those HLA levels or the hydration method is off. It's just nice and silky glide. There's no lathering. There's no whiteout. There's no weird clumping as it spreads. It thins out quickly on the skin, leaves a very, very nice hydrated, soft, light, and cushioned feel. And after it settles in for a minute, the important thing is the after feel. So just give that a second, let that settle in. I don't want a sticky film sitting on top of my skin. I want it to feel nice and comfortable, smooth, and easy to layer underneath my moisturizer. And that is really the whole point of this serum. The formula still feels advanced, but the sensory is wearable. It's clear, it's smooth, there's no tack, and it's dropper friendly. So let's go ahead and get that into our dropper bottle here. Nice dark colored dropper bottle. That is best for any of your serums that contain actives. There we go. And there it is. There's our beautiful multi-peptide serum. It's gorgeous. It feels fantastic on the skin. Like I said, I did try this last night, and it's just really beautiful. Here's what we learned today. A peptide serum is not just about choosing impressive actives and putting them in the water. The structure of the base matters. The way that you hydrate your powders matters. And the order in which you add things matters. The final skin feel matters just as much as the ingredient list, let's not forget. So that's how we avoid problems that people run into with peptide serums. The watery texture, the sticky finish, the clumps, the cloudiness, or that unfinished homemade gel feel. The big takeaway though is this: build your serum base first. Make sure that it's smooth and hydrated, and then you bring your peptide phase into a system that's already ready for it. That one shift makes the whole formula more controlled, more wearable, and much more professional. So if you found this content helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with your fellow skincare makers. Remember, the full written formula for this is available at the Formulator Friend Advanced tier level on Patreon, along with the larger formula library. Thanks for hanging out with me today at Creation Station. I'll see you in the next formulation sometime soon, I hope. Take care.